I sat on a moss-covered boulder by the side of a cascade fall. The green ferns whispered around me. From the pool, I could hear a faint call. As the water comes seething and tumbling in its glad, joyous leap from above, amid the noise and confusion around me, I could hear a soft whisper of love. Betrayed and outcast and forsaken, you were laid in an untimely grave. No eye and no voice to take pity, no arms stretched to succor or save. But you rose in your chrysalis beauty, bejeweled as heaven's own bride. And I welcome the whispering message that will summon my soul to your side.
Born without the love of a father, his mother walked sadly alone, with two kids to raise. In the harshest days, she decided to go no more. Three went into the water, not even one could swim. By chance, a rider came by, one came out again. The boy was raised by the best lot he drew, scarred by his mother that night, raised in the ways that were best in those days. But the boy was never quite right. Darkness he walks all alone, as the clouds block the stars in the sky. He sits and he waits on the rain to come, just to hear his dear mother cry. The boy grew and lived on the mountain, away from the spectator's eyes. Rattlesnake showed him compassion as they crowded around him at night. Said, stay, stay, my friends, I'll give you a place to sleep. I'll build me a bed with hinges and lead. I don't want to slumber too deep. Darkness he walks all alone, as the clouds block the stars in the sky. Sits and he waits on the rain to come, just to hear his dear mother cry. When the dogwoods bloom on the mountain, spring winds push the waters along. He closes his eyes, smiles to himself, or he's hearing his dear mother's song. In darkness he walks all alone, as the clouds block the stars in the sky. Sits and he waits on the rain to come, just to hear his dear mother cry.
One of the more interesting characters that lived on Magazine Mountain was a man by the name of Chalmers Ferguson. Chalmers had an unusual story. When he was about 7 years old or so, his mother had a child out of wedlock. In the 1800s, that was a very difficult thing to happen. It literally was like the Scarlet Letter. So they had to face the scorn of the people in the community and had no way of making a living. Chalmers' mother was so destitute that she decided to commit suicide, and in the process kill both of her children. She took both of them out into a stream. Holding Chalmers under her arm and the baby up close to her, she fell backward into the water and attempted suicide. A man rode up on his horse, saw the three of them in the water, jumped in, and was able to save Chalmers. However, Chalmers witnessed his baby sister's and mother's deaths, and it affected him throughout his lifetime. A family who came through the area around Paris adopted him. Chalmers had, at some time, visited Magazine Mountain and was impressed by the area. As an adult, while in the military, he joined Teddy Roosevelt and the Rough Riders in San Antonio. He traveled with Roosevelt to Cuba and supposedly was at the battle for San Juan Hill, where again he witnessed all the terrible things that humanity does to each other through battle. He became fairly disenchanted with people, and he wanted to live by himself. So in the early 1900s, he rode the train into Magazine, Arkansas, got off the train, journeyed up on the side of Magazine Mountain, and built himself a cabin off the west end where he lived as a hermit. A lot of stories went around about Chalmers. He was very eccentric, dressed real funny, wore a green velveteen vest and a big top hat. He was tall and angular. He looked something like Ichabod Crane. That alone in Magazine, Arkansas, would make him kind of eccentric, living off on the mountain by himself. In addition to that, he didn't want to be around people, so he took in a lot of the local wildlife. His favorite was the rattlesnake. They say he had several rattlesnakes in his cabin that he kept as pets. At night, for fear that he would turn over on one of the snakes and it would strike him, Chalmers built, literally, a coffin. At night, he would crawl into the coffin, pull the lid down over himself, and sleep in that to protect him from the snakes. He wrote a lot of poetry. He was sometimes called the poet of Magazine Mountain or the poet of Arkansas. Some of it is very good, but if you listen to his poetry, you can sense the melancholy. You can sense the attitude of futility, I guess, in dealing with mankind. A lot of times you would have a beautiful poem. For example, as I watch the raindrops twinkle from the sky and fall gently over the rocks, I can hear my dear mother's voice. He always heard his mother's voice. He always had these sounds coming to him. so we can see how he was greatly affected by the events in his life. Our Blind Man's Bluff Productions music director, Patrick Millard, wrote and produced this ballad, which has captured the essence of Chalmers Ferguson's life.